Hey everybody. Hello. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Getting attacked by the dogs because I decided to do this. Say hello, Coco. Hello, Coco. Because I decided to do this in the house today instead of going to the studio. So they always go nuts when they know that I'm on camera. Uh, Welcome to Positive Affirmations Tuesdays. I didn't really have too much planned for today. I didn't I didn't give a whole lot of thought as to maybe what I wanted to talk about. But I did come across something on Facebook. Let me pull it up. That one of my friends had posted, and it was pretty powerful. And I thought, I don't know who needs to hear this, but somebody might. And I kind of needed to hear it. And so let me see if I can find it now. It was about like aging gracefully. It was a bunch of wonderful advice given by a woman who's much, much, much older. And sometimes that kind of stuff is exactly what you need to hear. Okay, of course I can't find it right now. So that's okay. Hi Ronnie, how are you? I was looking for something I had read on Facebook, but now I'm thinking that I can't remember exactly who posted it. But it was really powerful. It was by it was like a little essay written by a much older woman. I think she was in her 80s or early 80s or could have even been the late 80s. But she she had some really good advice, and I liked some of the stuff that she had said, and I wish I had marked it now. But I remember one thing she had said about getting older, and she was like, try not to stress so much about the changes going on with your body, because your body has always been changing, right? And that's true. And I remember when I was young, there were changes in my body that I couldn't wait to see happen, right? And it's so funny because when you're younger, all you want to do is be older. And when you're older, you go, whoa, wait a minute, right? Especially, the age of older that I am becoming. But she had some really cool advice, and so I think what I'll do is I'll try to find that for next week, because accepting the changes in our body, in our mind, and our thoughts, that's part of self-love. Because if you don't accept them, then you're always being overly critical of yourself. And so it was really important, and I'm really bummed that I can't find it, but I'm going to look for it. So, and then maybe I'll do it next week. So, yeah, I don't like the aches and pains that come with age either. And I was pretty careless in my youth, and boy, hindsight's 2020. There's a lot of things that I wish I had done. I wish I had taken better care of myself in certain ways. I wish I had set up certain habits, that that I feel like now would almost be impossible for me to set up. I'm just too old now. And but yeah, so it's always nice to hear something from um, a woman who's been there, done that, and who's older, even than me. Uh, it's just hard to believe because I feel like the oldest woman in the world some days. So, but other than that I came across on Facebook yesterday and that I can't find now, I didn't have a whole lot in mind for today. And so I thought I would just go ahead and read, um, out of this book, the page for today, because sometimes I've done that in the past where I didn't really have anything planned, and I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna, because in this book you can go by the date, or you can actually look up a topic in the back in the glossary. But you could just read it. You could, if you wanted, you could start any time of the year and just read one day after the other because they're dated as well. Uh, but when I've done this and I've read it by the date, sometimes I found that it was something I didn't know I needed to hear, or it was something that somebody else didn't know that they needed to hear. So sometimes life is kind like that. So today's is titled, and it is the 16th, I think, April 16th, Letting Things Happen. We do not have to work so hard at gaining our insights. Yes, we're learning that painful and disappointing things happen, often for a reason and a higher purpose. Yes, these things often work out for good, but we don't have to spend so much time and energy figuring out the purpose and plan for each detail of our life. That's hypervigilance. Sometimes the car doesn't start. Sometimes the dishwasher breaks. Sometimes we catch a cold. Sometimes we run out of hot water. Sometimes we have a bad day. While it helps to achieve acceptance and gratitude for these irritating annoyances, we don't have to process everything and figure out if it's in the scheme of things. Solve the problem. Get the car repaired, fix the dishwasher, nurse yourself through the cold, wait to take the shower until there's hot water, nurture yourself through your bad day, tend to your responsibilities, and don't take everything so personally. If we need to recognize a particular insight or awareness, we will be guided in that direction. Certainly, we want to watch for patterns, but often the big insights and the significant processing happen naturally. We don't have to question every occurrence to see how it fits into the plan. The plan, the awareness, the insight, the potential for personal growth will reveal itself to us. And perhaps the lesson is to learn to solve our problems without always knowing their significance. Perhaps the lesson is to trust ourselves to live and experience life. And the affirmation for that is, today I will let things happen without worrying about the significance of each event. I will trust that this will bring about my growth faster than running around with a microscope. I will trust my lessons to reveal themselves in their own time. So, Ronnie Lynn says, good advice. I overthink everything. Yeah, I used to do that. Well, I can still do that sometimes, I guess. I really did it when I was younger. I really, you want to talk about hypervigilance. I really dissected everything and every emotion, you know, tried to figure out its source and what did it mean. And And it was pretty exhausting. And I was in my like 20s, my early 20s. And so even if somebody had handed me the meaning of life, I wouldn't have known what to do with it. So young, and and relatively dumb, you know, about life. And I was thinking, I think life is kind of about learning how to hold on and learning how to let go. Learning when to stand up and be heard, and learning when to sit down and be quiet and just take it in. You can't do any one of those all the time, right? If you just latched on and held on to every single thing in your life, you would be full of all the time. You would be full of worry and dread of what would happen if you lost it. And if you were really flippant and didn't ever get attached to anything, you would probably die without having a lot of really valuable and meaningful experiences. And if all you did was stand up and make your own voice heard, your own voice the loudest one in the room, you would certainly miss out on a lot of amazing things that a lot of other people have to say. So I think, and this is nothing new, I'm not reinventing the wheel here. I think life is about balance. And balance, whether it's physical or mental, is a hard thing to find. Think about as a kid trying to learn how to walk on a balance beam or stand on one leg or walk on your hands or stand on your head. Excuse me, I have something not nice in there. Everything gets caught in this trait but boys and money. I'll tell you that right now. And I've had to learn how to let go of that. Think of as a kid trying to find physical balance doing those kid things, right? And then when you get older, that shifts to trying to find like work, social, family balance, right? Because one always seems to take priority. But I think that's what we should be after. And probably won't find it until the end, right? I kind of think we age the wrong way. It would be so much nicer to kind of age the way in that movie. I don't know if you've seen it. I think it's like the curious story or the curious life of Benjamin Button, and Brad Pitt is the lead, and he's born an old man, just a really, really ugly, old baby, and by the time he dies, he's actually a baby, right? But by the time he has accumulated all these different types of wisdom that you need, right, to kind of successfully navigate life and relationships, um, and chasing after, your personal goals and your family goals and relationship goals. And by the time he's accumulated that kind of wisdom, he's actually of like the perfect age to apply it. Um, so it's kind of too bad that we don't age that way, because some of us are probably at our very best when we're at the very end. And society doesn't find a lot of value in very old people, right? So nobody really wants to listen to you. So I think that life is about trying to figure it out without trying to overanalyze everything, right? Again, balance. Yeah, Ronnie says if we only knew at 18 the things that we know now. Yeah, I kind of wish, I don't know if I would maybe go back to 18, but, certainly 22, 23, I wouldn't mind going back knowing what I know now. I certainly would avoid some of the huge heartaches that I've had in my life. But who knows? In avoiding those, I could wind up with something worse, right? And I want to say there was a movie or a book where like somebody was able to do that. They kind of got a do-over, and they got to go back. And when they would see, oh, there's that person, I've got to avoid that person, because I know what happens there. Or no, I'm not going to go work there because I know what's going to happen if I work there. Oh, I better not get into that car because I know that there's going to be a car accident if I know what happens there. And what happens is, yeah, they avoid all the things that they know, all of the horrible tragedies and heartaches and really painful losses, and they avoid all that they know, only to turn around and now deal with tragedies and loss and heartache that they didn't know, that they don't know. And so it was kind of really all for naught, if that makes sense. Went back to avoid the heartaches, but you can't avoid heartache in life. You can't avoid loss. You can't avoid pain. You can't avoid confusion. Um, you can't avoid any of that. And so this person, knowing everything that they knew and going back, yeah, I believe, like it said, it was a book or a movie. Yeah, they were able to achieve success because they knew work here, or go work for that person, or buy that stock, or get this education, or focus on this. But even though they had money and stuff like that, they were not able to avoid the things that just come with life and personal relationships. So, I think there has to be a balance between being aware of what you're going through, and if there's patterns, um, being aware, but not being, like the reading said, running around with a microscope, right? And trying to dissect it. It's really exhausting. Ryan says, once again, balance, know what to do with the wisdom. Yeah, right. And I think some of that wisdom is, like I said, you learn when to hold on, learn when to let go, learn when to stand up, learn when to sit back, learn when to take action, learn when to just sit back and take it in, you know. And I when I was younger, here's some things that I wish I had known back then. I was, when I was younger, I was much more apt to react to a situation, right? Versus when I saw the situation happening, or I could read the writing on the wall. Um, if I had just taken some action, I wouldn't have been on the receiving end of somebody else's action, right? So it's kind of like insult to injury. If I had stepped in and changed something or said something or removed myself from the situation, I wouldn't, not only would I have not had to deal with the stress of whatever was happening, I also wouldn't have had to deal with the fallout and my reaction, which when I was younger was usually very, very, very over the top. And it was a huge waste of energy. And now I'm much more prone to acting versus reacting. And if I do have to react or respond to something else, I'm usually slower. I'm usually slower to, usually, not all the time, I'm usually slower to react, especially if I'm really mad. I'll usually sit on that for a minute and try to figure things out. Ronnie says, my favorite quote that I've always tried to carry with me is, God, give me the strength to deal with whatever, the wisdom to know what to let go of and to know the difference, whatever it was. Oh, that's the serendipity prayer. So that is, let me see if I can remember it, Ronnie. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Feels like there should be a lot more to that, right? But it's very powerful as it is. But I think that's, I'm pretty sure that's how it goes. You know, grant me the serenity to accept what I can't change, and if I can change it, help me be courageous to do that. And let me know the difference. So it's funny because that kind of ties into what I said earlier, which was no one to stand up and make some noise, and no one to sit down and listen, no one to hold on and be very tenacious and stick something out, and no one to let go because it's a waste of your energy and your time. And that's tricky for a lot of us, right? You know, I know with, especially when I was younger with me, you know, if I had invested any time into a relationship, I was very reluctant to let it go because I had already invested so much time, or we'd already been through this, or we'd already made progress in this area, or, you know, things had improved in the past 6 months. So why not give it another 6 months or another year to see if it would even improve more, right? I don't know. I don't really know what that was about, except that I guess I didn't want to feel like the time that I had invested in the things that I had been through were wasted. But I will tell you that most of the time I just Ended up wasting more energy and more time. And then I was pissed. Then I was mad, you know, by the time the relationship ended, because it was like, you wasted so much of my time. You put me through this. You put me through that. When I knew to get out 2 years ago. I just didn't want to do it because I'd invested a year. So then I threw 2 more away after it, right? Yeah, I definitely didn't have the wisdom to know the difference, right? To accept what I couldn't change and leave. Just to say, I can't change this. The only thing I can change about this situation is removing myself from it and let this person move on to the next victim, because they're not going to change, right? But I would almost bend myself into pretzels mentally and emotionally, um, trying to change and make, you know, you can't make an apple pie when you only have ingredients for meatloaf. You're just not going to get the result that you want. That's the best way I can sum it up. If you only have ingredients for meatloaf, but you're really invested in only making apple pie, you have fun with that. You're going to work on that and work yourself to death too. Maybe you can make meatloaf in the shape of an apple pie. Maybe you can convince yourself it tastes like it, but it ain't. So, yeah, I definitely didn't have the wisdom to know when to let go. And, right? I mean, think about it, because essentially that's what some situations are. Sometimes all the hoping and wishing and praying and burning candles and crying and break up and make up and all that, it is not going to change what it is. It is what it is. And you either have to accept it and get on board. Now, don't get me wrong. If you're in a relationship or a situation with somebody that wants to change, somebody that wants apple pie too, right? So then stay and work it out. But what I have found oftentimes is that wasn't what I was doing. I was sitting there unhappy with the meatloaf, wanting apple pie, and desperately trying to make myself want meatloaf, and while trying to make the meatloaf apple pie. That makes sense. And anybody that is just coming into this right now won't understand any of this conversation unless they go back. But yeah, you gotta have the wisdom, and that comes with age. I've often said I'm probably now at the best part of my life, where I'm most capable. I know who I am, and I know what I want. I know what I don't want, and I take care of myself, and I'm independent, and I don't need anybody to complete me, and I don't need any of that, right? And I know how to communicate, and I know how to accept things for what they are, and I know how to check things out before I sign onto something, right? Whatever it is. So I'm probably in the best position that I've ever been in terms of really navigating a relationship successfully and cooperating, and relationships a lot of give and take, And I'm probably at the best stage of my life to do that. I could probably make a relationship really successful because I would choose a different kind of a partner than I would have in the past, right? But I don't want one. I don't want one now because it's just like life is so easy right now, right? I don't want to introduce that. So it's funny because sometimes when you're in mentally and emotionally in the best position to do something, you might not you might not be interested in it any longer. So I certainly wish I had the relationship tools that I have in my little toolbox now. Way back when, it would have made my life and other people's lives a whole lot easier, right? But you can't go back, you know. Um, I have a sign in my studio, one of my signs, and it says, "Don't look back. You're not going that way. Don't look back. You're not going that way." And I love that because I need that reminder a lot, right? Because I think it's human, especially the older we get, to reflect on some things. But there's not a lot of value in it. Ronnie says, "Same here. I can trust my gut, but still feel overwhelmed sometimes." Yeah, yeah, for sure, for sure. Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. My life is pretty easy right now, pretty cake. Um, but it's still life, you know. Do I love being alone? Yeah, but it also means when big situations or big issues or big problems come up, I'm alone to deal with it by myself. I can't all of a sudden, just reach out for some partner and, drag somebody in to help me clean up a mess. I mean, something big happens, I'm alone to deal with it. So, uh, yeah, but by choice. And who knows? I won't rule a relationship out. I don't know how it would happen if I keep myself locked away in this little tower. So I don't know who's gonna storm the castle to get up here. Um, but I guess it could happen. I don't put myself in those situations for it to happen organically. So I don't know. We'll see. But with the right partner that had some insight, I could probably be very successful in a relationship, much more successful than I was when I was younger. So, but interesting. There was an interesting read today, and what I like about this book is why you can look up the different topics, or like I said, you can read them day by day. Uh, I can see often that there's um, a theme that the writer had um, when she was writing these. Um, and Ronnie says that her partner knows that she's outspoken, so he knows what he's getting. Yeah, well, it's funny because sometimes, uh, when you're dating and stuff like that, the things that in theory are sometimes much different when you apply them to everyday life. So it's funny, and that's why I think some people date like a really long time, right? Or they live together for a long time before they get married because it's much different to know that somebody's outspoken when you're dating than it is when you're living together, right? So, yeah, yeah, I don't know. I don't know. But I hope he knows what he's getting into. And of course, wish you guys all the success in the world. Okay, I do have another live stream tonight. And it's a cooking one, and I do have some stuff that I have to do, and I'm also woefully tired because even though I know better, I stayed up very, 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 very late last night. So I'm gonna wrap this up, and here is I only have one of these today. Here is our one card, and it says, "What is the hardest thing I've ever had to go through? How do I motivate myself through my struggle times?" And that was a really easy one for me to answer. Um, I know what the hardest thing was that I ever went through, and boy, I'll tell you, I got through it, but I didn't get through it very gracefully. I'll tell you that. And the affirmation is, my strength is greater than my struggle. My strength is greater than my struggle. And that's important. I think it's always important, especially, you know, at this stage of my life, as old as I am, I have to know that whatever situation comes up, I'm going to make it through it because the proof's in the pudding. The proof is right here. First, I'm sitting here. I'm not sitting here because, I just pirouetted through life. I didn't just waltz right through it unscathed. I'm here because I saw some stuff, and I went through some stuff, and I got through some stuff, and went way deep down in the valleys and clawed my way out up to the top, and then fell down that hill into another valley. So the proof's in the pudding that you are stronger than anything that you do have strength. That's why you're here. And whatever happens, you're going to be strong enough to face it. There was a really great phrase that I heard, because you're always going to have pain, and you're always going to have struggles at some point in your life. You always have something will happen that you're going to have to overcome and get through. And I saw this phrase somewhere, and I really wish I could remember where, because I'd love to credit the person that said it or wrote it. But it said, the comeback will be greater than the setback. And if you think about it, it always is. The comeback's always greater than the setback because you're stronger, because you learned something, because you went through something that isn't going to scare you the next time you see it. It's not a stranger now. It's not a monster under the bed. You know what this one looks like. And so just with that, the comeback is greater than the setback, right? It doesn't always feel like it was worth it to go through it, but it was. When you face the dragon and you slay it, that's one less dragon that you have to be scared of, right? So I always try to remember that. There's a couple of things I always try to remember. I always try to remember that the universe isn't doing, when I'm going through something, the universe isn't doing it to me. The universe is doing it for me, regardless of how it feels. Whatever's happening is happening for me, for my betterment at some point. Even though I can't see it, it's happening for me, not to me. And then the comeback will be greater than the setback. The reward is going to be 200 times more valuable than the cost, whatever it was. So anyway, that is it for today. Like I said, we didn't really have a topic. We just kind of went with the reading and saw where that took us. It's kind of funny how, and I've seen this happen before when I've done this, when I don't really have a topic and I just do the reading for the day and see where it goes and start a conversation. Something later on in the conversation that just comes about organically will loop back to something else that was said in earlier in the conversation. And I felt that way when I was talking about the life balance, right? You have to learn when to hold on. You have to learn when to let go. You have to learn when to stand up and make noise and be heard. And you have to know when to sit down and just listen and take it in. And then Ronnie Lynn, and then the conversation went down a winding path. And much later, Ronnie Lynn brought up the Serenity Prayer, which is essentially that. So, and we'll end it with the Serenity Prayer for whoever needs to hear that, and try to remember it as you go forward through this week. God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Okay, I will see you guys next week. Thank you for coming. Have a great one. Be kind to yourself, be kind to others, and maybe I'll see you later on my live cooking stream. Okay, bye-bye.